Hello, hi, this is Mark, and welcome to Tea With. And I'm having tea with Dr. Mark out of Melbourne, Australia. And we were just having a very good conversation. And I want to introduce Mark to the audience. So, Mark, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, Tom, for inviting me on.
All right. So, Mark, we were talking about passion. And you went into a really good explanation. So can you elaborate more about passion for us?
About my own passion? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so my thing is really the brain. Some of you may know I'm actually a neuroscientist. It's what I do for a living. I do research into into the brain and teaching also on the brain. Some of the research we're doing now is really interesting, using powerful magnetic fields to influence different parts of the brain's activity to try to find out how the brain works. For example, we're using it for treatment in depression. Um, so many exciting things going on in brain research, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is taking the sort of the basic facts that we find in sciences, in the neurosciences in my case, and looking at them as though they were a tool, and then looking to see what you can actually do with them. You know, it's great to have all this knowledge. Within the formal structure of science, it can take years or decades before you can actually do something useful with that knowledge. And one thing that I'm really interested in is seeing if we can't take some of that knowledge and do something useful with it now, or at least, soon, instead of in 10 years' time or in 20 years' time, when all the science has finally worked its way through. So I guess that's really my passion. The brain is such a fascinating and complex organ. Everything that we do, everything that we feel has a basis in brain activity. And so, understanding, or at least having a bit of an idea about what's going on in there, is a really powerful thing when you're thinking about how you can help yourself, or how you can help others. So yeah, I guess if I had to pick out one thing, that would be it, the brain.
Very good, Mark. And I'm looking at something, and how about courage? How is courage relevant to what you do?
Yeah, well, I guess that a part of the idea of confidence, that's the sort of the program that I'm working on at the moment, of course, is reasonable confidence with Tom. A lot of it is having, I guess you could say, the courage to just to start doing something that you haven't done before, that you haven't felt you could do before, or that maybe you didn't even know that you wanted to do before. So I think, a certain amount of courage is an essential component of wanting to do pretty much anything that isn't just what you've been, what you've gotten comfortable doing. If you're in a rut doing the same sort of thing day in, day out, then you kind of do all that sort of thing automatically on automatic pilot. When it comes to doing something that kind of gets your stomach butterflies going and starts you feeling a bit unsure of what's going on, or anything in that sort of situation, will require a certain amount of courage. I mean, there's different levels of courage. There's the advancing under enemy machine gun fire kind of courage, which is obviously a very extreme thing. But, it also takes courage to, to change a habit that you've had for a long time, whether that's taking, whether it's drinking, or whether it's having been, on a poor diet, whether it's been not exercising, whether it's getting out and trying to find a new job, whether it's trying to make new friends. All of these things also, I mean, they obviously involve a level of courage. And, if you've got confidence in yourself, it makes that courage, it makes it much easier to find that courage, doesn't it? I mean, you still need the courage, but it just becomes a bit easier to find it if you've got some confidence in yourself, I think.
So we're talking about courage in the brain, and how about people that have experienced a certain amount of trauma or abuse in their life, and they're experiencing a lot of fear? What type of advice do you have for these people?
Well, I think, you know, when people have experienced traumatic experiences in their life, and it's something that's affecting them, it often can involve some quite marked changes in brain activity. There's a part of a brain called the amygdala. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a very active part of the brain when we are feeling fear, when we're feeling threatened, and people, when they go through a traumatic experience, can make their amygdala become extremely sensitive, so that they will become fearful in situations where most people would not. And particularly anything that reminds them of the trauma that they experienced. Now, these sorts of changes in the brain and the basis for the trauma can be really very difficult to deal with. I mean, I would say, first of all, that anybody who's having serious problems after a trauma, it's a good idea always to try to seek professional advice, to go and see a doctor, and that in itself can take courage to take that step to acknowledge that you need some help. But it can help to know that if you've experienced a serious trauma, that the problems that you're having are not a weakness in your mind. It's not something, you're not going crazy. In a sense, it's like a physical injury. A part of your brain has been affected by that experience and is now on high alert all the time when it need not be. So if you're really seriously troubled with trauma, then definitely I'd recommend seeking professional help. Beyond that, there are ways that you can try to help to calm down the parts of your brain that have become sort of overexcited and overactive by the trauma. There are ways which, if you're familiar with the sort of work that Tom Cassidy's been doing and Richard Wilkins and so on, they talk about scripts, for example. In some ways, this automatic overactivity, oversensitivity of the amygdala is expressed in terms of scripts that tell you that you're in danger, or that if you do this, you're going to fail, you're going to be met again with hostility and danger and so on. And so you can do some things yourself to help to counteract those negative scripts by introducing something slightly more positive into the picture, and even just recognizing that because of your overactive amygdala, because of this amygdala activity, you're specifically picking out of the environment everything that seems negative and everything that seems hostile. And once you concentrate on something on the environment, that's all that you see. And this is really applicable to so many aspects of life. So many of the problems that people have is we don't realize that what we see around us, what we hear, what we see, what we remember, is not really what's there. What's there is actually an awful lot more than that. And we first of all pick out just a tiny proportion of everything that's there, and we concentrate on that. And then even that limited portion of reality that we concentrate on then gets distorted by the way that we think. And we can distort it in ways that are positive and beneficial for us. Obviously, you don't want to distort it too much, because then you're out of touch with reality, which is not good for anybody. But it's better if you have the choice. If you were to choose, you would want to perceive reality in a way that is beneficial to you, which is helpful to you, than in a way which is, really negative and causing you anxieties.
So, Mark, how does one eliminate feelings of hopelessness or defeat from their thoughts?
Yeah, hopelessness and defeat. Well, that's sort of, I guess I would think of those as being parts of depressive thoughts, pretty severe negative kind of thoughts. And I think that the best way to start trying to turn that sort of thinking around is to begin by introducing what I call balancing thoughts, because when you're feeling hopeless and defeated and so on, you have continuous trains of negative thoughts going through your mind, don't you? It's there all the time. It's like the background music, and it's even going to be there when you're asleep. You know, it can affect your dreams. You know, often people, you know, who are feeling really down, they sort of wish, well, at least it'll be good to be able to go to sleep and have a pleasant dream. But so often they go to sleep and the dreams are also coloured by negativity and so on, because it's in our unconscious mind. You know, we think these negative thoughts for so long that they become automatic. You know, they're a part of the script, as Tom Cassidy or Richard Wilkins would say. In my terms, they're groups of brain cells which are acting together, they're firing together, and they represent those negative thoughts. So to try to overcome them, the thing to do is to begin with just thinking a thought that just introduces a tiny bit of balance into the situation. So if someone's thinking, for example, I'm hopeless, I can't get anything right, okay, that's a really dark sort of thought. So the way to counter it is just to begin by thinking, well, you know, maybe I could get something right if I tried. Now, it sounds like a kind of a lame sort of thing, doesn't it? It doesn't really sound like a great affirmation. But the point is that you're just starting to introduce a bit of balance into things. Because if you've spent, you know, some years thinking that you're hopeless, that you're worthless, you can't get anything right, and then you suddenly try to think, you know, I'm awesome, I'm fantastic, I can do anything I put my mind to, the world's my oyster. You know, it's not really going to work. It's going to be like someone who's been a couch potato for 10 years, suddenly trying to run a marathon. You know, you get a burst of enthusiasm to begin with, and then you start running, but you're going to run out of steam pretty fast. You know, you just can't keep up that level of behavior, which is so different from what you've been doing for so long. So you just have to start off slowly. Okay, so you begin by introducing these balancing thoughts. Maybe, you know, maybe I could do something if I tried. Not something big, not something difficult, just anything. You know, maybe I could have some success with something. And once you start to get more comfortable with thinking those kinds of thoughts, you can increase, you know, the level of positivity, because you're never ever going to completely get rid of negative thinking. It's always going to be there. Negative thinking and positive thinking are different things. It's like, you know, like Los Angeles and New York are different cities. You know, you can't make Los Angeles smaller by building New York larger. You know, but it's just balancing things out, and by becoming more able to think positive thoughts by doing it gradually, you know, that becomes a part of your habit as well. And you know, we talk about choosing what to think, but it's much easier to choose to think positive thoughts once you've actually got some practice at doing it. So that's what I would say, is to start out easy and start out just with some balancing thoughts that introduce a bit of light, you know, into the dark things that you've been thinking.
So, Mark, how can enthusiasm, open-heartedness, and willingness benefit somebody?
Enthusiasm,
willingness, and open-heartedness benefit somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, enthusiasm, first of all, is obviously important for getting the energy to be able to, you know, to try to do anything. A lot of the things that we want to do when we're trying to change habits that we've had for a long time, the problem is that the habits, to start with, have got the upper hand, you know, because what's a habit mean? It's something that we do habitually. We do it without even thinking about it. So that's kind of like the default position. That just happens automatically, and so we actually have to put in some effort to try to change it. Now, of course, there's ways that we can reduce the amount of effort, there's ways that we can make it more efficient, but we do nevertheless still have to actually do something, use some energy in order to, you know, to change things from out of that default setting. Now, enthusiasm, of course, is great because without enthusiasm, it's very difficult to get started. But without enthusiasm that's ongoing, it's very difficult to keep it going. And that brings us back, I think, we were discussing earlier about the 13 by 4 system. I mean, it's a really good thing for keeping enthusiasm going, because I think enthusiasm has two parts to it, doesn't it? It's like there's the initial really excited part of it, where it's like, oh, it's something new, this is going to be great, but that doesn't usually last very long. So you need the sort of the enthusiasm for the long haul, which is where, I'm going to keep going with this. It might not be the sort of enthusiasm where you're jumping up and down with excitement because it's all new, but it's the sort of enthusiasm that keeps you, keeps you going for the long haul, and that's really important. In terms of open-heartedness, you have to be open to new ideas and to new ways of thinking, and you have to be open to what other people are thinking as well. And it's undoubtedly extremely helpful to be open to the knowledge that other people are basically the same as you, that we all have more similarities than we do have differences. I think that's a big part of open-heartedness. What was the third thing you mentioned, Tom? Sorry, I forgot. You said enthusiasm, open-heartedness, and
willingness.
Willingness. Yeah, willingness. Absolutely. I mean, where would you be if you were never willing to try something different? It's I was talking earlier about the default settings that we have, for our habits. You don't need any will power to do those; they just happen automatically. You don't need any willingness; you'll do those things no matter what. So willingness is important in terms of actually knowing that there's something that you want to do, something you want to change. That's important, but you actually have to have, of course, the will to choose that. Will and choice are closely related, I think. The will to do something is, the choice to do something. But actually making that choice is where will comes in. And, open-heartedness is, we were just talking about that. Willingness, I guess, is also related to open-mindedness, isn't it? You need to be able to consider that there's different ways of doing things that you hadn't thought of before, or maybe you had thought of them before, but you'd rejected them before. Well, maybe, you have to show a bit of willingness in terms of trying things that you hadn't tried before.
Mark, what about the word synchronicity? Does that mean anything to you at all? Synchronicity?
Well, synchronicity, I mean, I can tell you, I think the formal definition that I recall from my undergraduate degree, which is that when two things happen at the same time, and although they are not related in a cause and effect kind of relationship, they are nevertheless related in some meaningful way, or you can find some meaning between these events. Now, I guess it seems to me very much like serendipity. I'm not exactly sure what the difference would be between them. I'm sure Carl Jung, who devised the term synchronicity, would say there's a difference, but I'm not sure what it might be. But yeah, I mean, there are lots of things that happen in life. It's a big world. There's millions of people doing, billions of people doing hundreds of thousands of things every day. And so things are going to occur at the same time. Now, whether there's a plan behind it, whether there's some agency that is organizing things, such that sometimes two things will occur together to give you a great opportunity if you notice it, or whether it's all just a chance event. Personally, I don't think it really matters what it is. The important thing is to be, have an awareness of what's going on around you, to have enthusiasm, willingness and open-heartedness, as you were saying, and then you are able to notice when something is happening which can be an opportunity for you and that you can act upon. So, you know, I mean, as you know, Tom, I'm a scientist, so I've always kind of got my scientist hat on, at least a little bit. So, you know, synchronicity, is it just chance events? Is it part of a grand scheme? Well, of course, I don't know, but like I say, I don't think it really matters to me. To me, what really matters is what you make of the things that come your way.
What about the term rock the boat? Rock the boat.
Rock the boat, okay. Well, I guess that's an interesting concept, isn't it? I mean, like with everything, there's you know, all things in moderation, as they say. If you're in a little boat and you rock it too much, you're going to be in trouble. If you're in a big boring boat where nothing's happening and you want to rock it around a bit, then that's good. I guess it really depends, you know, what's the boat that you're in, and is it a boat where you're stuck in, you know, in your rut of habits, and you need to try to get it out of that. Then rocking the boat's a great thing. I think, you know, you don't want to be in the frame of mind where you're just wanting to be disruptive, you know, for the sake of something different happening. You know, you can get into a frame of mind where, you know, you want something different, but maybe you don't know what it is, and then you act in ways that are actually self-harmful. You know, people are maybe in a boring job or in a difficult situation in their relationships, in their, you know, domestic situation, and you can want to rock the boat a bit, maybe, you know, getting into some gambling or, you know, some other things that are, you know, can be a bit of a slippery slope into danger. That's the negative side of it. You know, so on the other hand, you might be in those situations and you decide, oh, okay, you know, I'm going to go out and learn some new skills, or I'm going to go out and try and meet some new people. So really, you know, it's all about discernment and you know, sort of thinking about what you're doing, thinking and listening to your instincts.
So, Mark, you do you know, neuroscience of the brain, right? So how about this concept of mastering the transformation of thought?
The transformation of thought. I have to say, I have not heard of that concept, Mark. Transforming thoughts into what, for example?
Well, we're talking about you know, confidence, and also we're talking about courage. So,
oh,
you know,
okay. So you're talking about, sorry, I get you now. So you're talking about changing the sort of things that you're thinking. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, yeah. Well, again, thoughts are creatures of habits. Most of the things that we think are not things that we think consciously. They're just bubbling away, you know, under the surface in the unconscious and subconscious mind. They're things that we've thought for many, many years. And the interesting thing is that those thoughts that we think automatically, they have a lot of influence on our conscious thoughts, but our conscious thoughts don't have a lot of influence on our unconscious thoughts. So it's kind of a one-way street, or almost a one-way street. Most of the traffic is coming from our unconscious thoughts to our conscious mind. Pardon me. So it's pretty easy to change what we're thinking consciously for a short period of time, but it's very difficult to change what we're thinking consciously over the longer term. And that's why, you know, for example, when you first, you know, you start a new diet, or you start trying to do positive thinking or anything, you get that initial burst of energy and enthusiasm, and you feel really great because you're able to control those conscious thoughts in the short term. But before very long, you know, the unconscious thoughts that are always bubbling away under the surface start to take over again, and your conscious thoughts start to change back. So actually, one of the really best ways to alter your thinking, you know, in addition to things like practicing the balancing thoughts that I was talking about earlier and other things related to positive thinking, one of the best ways to actually approach it by using your body to alter your thinking, because the unconscious parts of your mind respond much more to what your body's doing than what they will to what you're consciously thinking. So, you know, talking about, say confidence, if you try to tell yourself, be confident, be confident, be confident, like that, it's not going to do much good. In fact, if anything, it's going to make you feel even more anxious and, you know, and uncomfortable. But if you put on a huge smile, you know, and you stand in a way that that comfortable people stand, or you sit in a way that comfortable people sit, it actually sends messages to your brain that says, like, hang on, wait a minute, my face is smiling, and it's not a pretend smile, it's this big, happy, confident smile, and your brain tries to make sense of what's going on, and the only way it can make sense of it is by saying, well, I must be feeling good. You know, if I've got this big smile, you know, not a fake sort of nervous smile, but a big, you know, hey, a big happy smile on your face, then your brain just says, well, you know, I must be feeling good. And that starts to affect those unconscious thoughts that are so hard to reach by just mental approaches. So I think, yeah, when it comes to trying to change what you think, there's really two important approaches. There is, you know, the sort of thing that everybody thinks about, the positive thinking kind of things. That's important. But there's also the physical approach to changing your unconscious thoughts. And that's something that I'm really excited about that's coming up in the Reasonable Confidence programs, because we're using both of those methods. And those physical methods, like the smiling, like using your posture, they're really good because they're so powerful, but they're physical skills that anyone can learn to do. It doesn't require a lot of thought. It doesn't really even require a lot of practice. You know, and when you can do it, you can change your state really quickly.
One word: protectiveness. What does protectiveness mean to you?
Protectiveness. Yeah. Well, this is another one of those concepts that is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Been talking about how so many of our thoughts are automatic, particularly many of the negative thoughts that we have are automatic. They have an adverse effect on our life. But if those negative thoughts could talk, you know, if you could sit them down and if you could talk to them, they would say, hey, but we're just protecting you. You know, we're just trying to save you from rejection or failure or the bad feelings that you've had in the past. You know, if you say you're in a job that you're not happy with and you're wanting to move on to a different job, but you keep feeling, oh no, I can't do that. You know, that's beyond me. I don't have the skills. I don't blah 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 blah. You know, I couldn't do that. Well, those negative thoughts, they're trying to save you from some negative feelings that you've had in the past, from a failure that you had in the past or something that you perceived was a failure. You know, you didn't get something right, you were, you know, told off by your parents or by your teachers or at work or whatever, you put a lot of effort into something, it didn't get anywhere, and it hurt. You know, and for some parts of your mind, that hurt is still real, it's still there now. And when those parts of your mind, you know, hear you saying, okay, I want to go and try something new, well, they get scared and they're trying to protect you from it. You know, it's like an overprotective parent. You know, they want to save you from hurting yourself, and to an extent that's necessary. You know, you want to have some part of your mind that stops you from throwing yourself off a cliff just because you think it might be a great idea to know what it feels like to fly. You know? You want to have your mind protecting you from that. but you don't want it to be so smothering that it stops you from doing, things that you really should be able to do. So yeah, I guess it comes back to the whole idea of everything in moderation. A certain amount of protectiveness of yourself is necessary, but sometimes you just have to learn to let it go a little bit.
Awesome stuff, Mark. I mean, fantastic answers. What a great flow. I have an affirmation that I want to read, and I think it relates, it ties everything together, and I would like your thoughts on it. So it reads as this: I embrace my life with fierceness, passion, and the courage to accomplish all that I will to do. I'll say it again. I embrace my life with fierceness, passion, and the courage to accomplish all that I will to do. How does that relate to you?
Yeah, no, I really like that. I'm going to write that. I'm going to get you to send me that in an email so I can write it down. Yeah, I like that. I especially like the fierceness part of it. It's such an energizing emotion, isn't it? That you're going to use. It's kind of like the good version of anger, isn't it? Fierceness, because it's focused. It's what getting you to where you want to be by really sort of helping to harness some of those primal emotions that are like anger, but used in a way that's going to help you out. Yeah, that's the part of that really stands out for me. That use of fierceness, I really like that. And of course, to achieve everything that you will to achieve, because it's combining the deep emotion, the ferocity, with the will, which is a really higher order thinking brain kind of activity, and that's a fantastic balance, from the start to finish in that affirmation. So yeah, I really like that. Did you make that up yourself?
I actually read it. I'll send it to you. It's in but it actually really seemed to tie everything up they were talking about. And I just want to say that it's been really great, having you on, and I'm very, it's an honor to have you on. I know that you're extremely busy, got a lot going on over there, and somebody's listening, to us, and it could be, right now, or it could be on the recorded version, and it could be someone you don't know, or it could be someone that you know, and it could be someone in the future, or someone, that's kind of like, likes what you have. And,
yeah.
What particular advice would you tell this particular person about, achieving what they will to do?
Yeah, of course, the first step is to try to know what it is that you want to will to do, and the second thing is just to stick at it. Just to keep going. And if one way doesn't work, then to try to find another way. But persistence, as you say, fierceness, that's going to help give you that persistence to keep going. Yeah, and to will what you want to do, know what you want to do, and have the fierceness of spirit to keep going, the determination to keep going. I think that's really that's the important thing. Thank you very much, Thanks very much, Mark. I appreciate that.
That was very well said, and because you certainly are, really putting together a most awesome, program here, and it's really going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. I'm very looking forward to it, and you are doing a lot of work. So, praise to you, my friend. And we're gonna sign off over here. Do you have any last word to say to everybody?
No, I'll just say thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for listening, and stick around for the next Tea With, because I'm certainly going to be watching the next one too.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mark, and we're going to sign off. This is Mark with Tea with Dr. Mark. All right, ciao.